Mr. Shake, thank you very much for joining us. Ron Shake, who runs
Chris.
Panera Foods, a great chain of restaurants, and you've done very well, I guess, financially, and you decided to see what it's like at the other end. What was it like? What is it like to live
Chris,
with $4.50 a day, rather?
Well, this is something that we've been working on for a very long time. It isn't the SNAP challenge. We've had these cafes of shared responsibility. We've give $100 to $150 million in donations, and it became very clear to us that this is a real issue. 48 million Americans are going to bed without enough food. And I decided at a personal level that I wanted to give awareness to that problem. I wanted to give voice to that problem. And I also wanted to feel it personally. As a retailer, as a guy who's run a public company for 20-odd years, the way we built our company is listening to the customer and listening to...
What do you miss eating on $4.50 a day? What do you miss?
You know what I discovered? You know, we all take food for granted. I need lunch, I get lunch. I need dinner, I get dinner. Here, food dominates my life. In this week that I've been doing it, I'm all worried, am I going to have enough food? What's going to happen? If I got in a little tiff with my wife. She put too much pasta in the pasta she was making for me, and I was really worried I wasn't going to have enough for the week. I've made one meal. I've had chickpea stew for 4 days. The reality is food dominates your life, and you begin to be unable to operate. I've had, and I think that, quite frankly, the most interesting part to me is not what I learned about me, but it was the letters I got. The senator spoke to it. I yesterday was speaking to a veteran who had basically hit a wall, couldn't move on, wasn't able to eat, and was able to live through some of the NGO
Let me let you say something that I think people need to hear. I hear from our producers here that when people come to your stores, your restaurants, and around the country, and they go in, and if they make a case to somebody there in authority behind the counter that they can't afford to eat there, what's the reaction? What's your standard of behavior then?
Well, as a rule, we're not giving away food. I mean, we would not be able to stay a $4 billion public company very long doing that. We have created cafes. We have now 5 of them. We're serving 1 million people a year in cafes of shared responsibility. There are no set prices in those cafes. We have one in St. Louis, one in Detroit, one in Chicago, one in Portland, Oregon, and one in Boston. They are in the cities. They're in places where people can access them. And the whole purpose is to give these cafes to the community and let the community take care of each other. We built it. We paid for it. The community takes care of it. We say to people, if you got a few extra bucks in your pocket, pay it forward and leave more to take care of people. If you have a little bit less, feel free to leave a little bit less. And if you have nothing, leave nothing. We'll ask you to volunteer and help clean the tables. And Chris, here's the amazing thing. People thought we were nuts when we were doing it. The reality is that these are working. People have stepped up. We will serve 1 million people in these cafes. Americans are fundamentally good people. They will understand. They will take care of each other.
Let me go back to congratulations on what you're doing. I think it's great the private sector doing this. Let me go back to Senator Stabenow, who's a great senator. Let me ask you about this whole issue of food stamps and the iconography of it. What did you make of it when Newt Gingrich called the president the food stamp president?
Well, you know, I mean, we all know what the codes are for that, Chris, and you talk about that all the time. I mean, I think what Ron is speaking to is the best about us. It's our higher angels. It's the values we've had as Americans of reaching out to help somebody, whether it's a poor child. Half of the people we're talking about on assistance are children. And the rest of the folks, you know, as I mentioned, I mean, need some temporary help, or they're folks that are seniors that we ought to be respecting in their older years, living only on Social Security and need a little bit of help, put food on the table, or people with disabilities. I mean, what they're doing in the House is going to our worst nature, you know, trying to pit people against each other. We've seen this story before, pitting everybody against each other instead of looking at the reality, which is food costs are coming down, 14 million people coming off of food assistance because the economy is improving. If they want to help us get more people off of food assistance, stop the sequester, help us create jobs instead of demonizing hungry children and families.
Yeah, they like to say that people use the food stamps to buy booze, to buy gin or vodka. I heard those charges. Anyway,
you know, Chris, if I could throw something in here. You know, the real question is what kind of society we want. And that's really the challenge that I think each of us, business people, Each of us, as individuals, have to really take a look
Well,
at
you're
and
a
determine.
great role model, Ron Shake. Thank you very much from Panera.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on tonight. And Senator Stabenow, thank you so much for coming on, as always. Up next, early in the week, we showed you that clever new campaign ad up in